Hello everyone. So today at the end of this video, we're going to be doing an activity that's going to help us better understand how certain animals adapt to their environments that they're living in. But before we start, let's brush up on what we know about living systems and processes. So let's start with an organism. What is an organism? Well, an organism is a living thing like you and me. Living organisms share a lot of common traits. They can breathe, reproduce, they can grow, and they respond to their environment. So can you think of any examples of a living organism? I'll help you out. Could a cow be an example of a living organism? It could, because cows breathe, reproduce, can grow, and they do respond to their environments. What about a cactus? Yes, a cactus is a living organism because they breathe, reproduce, can grow, and respond to their environment. We have to note, though, that animals and plants do these things in a lot of different ways. And our last example could be a chicken. A chicken is a living organism as well. And why is it? Because it can breathe, reproduce, grow, and respond to its environment. We classify these organisms into two groups. We classify them into plants and animals, since they're two different types of living organisms. All of these living organisms live in a place called their environment, and they all live in different environments. An environment is everything around us, from the soil, plants, water, and animals. These variables work together to create an ecosystem for living organisms. But now the question is, what happens when change occurs in the organism's environments? Well, adaptation occurs. When change occurs in an environment, living organisms adapt. Adaptation is plants and animals' special characteristics that helps them to survive in their environment. An example of an adaptation would be animals camouflaging so they are protected from any predators, kind of like a chameleon, how they can change colors when they're sitting on a log and nobody can see them or find them because they're the same color. Hibernation is also a form of adaptation, when animals go and burrow themselves so that they can stay warm during the winter. Migration is another great example of adaptation. Birds fly where it's most warm as the seasons change so that they can continue to eat and thrive. Now that we know a little bit more about how animals adapt to their environments, let's talk about someone who actually researched this. This is Charles Darwin, and he studied adaptation in animals on the Galapagos Islands. Let's take a closer look at these islands. As you can probably tell, they're not connected, so that means that these islands probably have different types of environments. The most important animal that Darwin studied on these islands would be this bird. Now, all of these birds are called finches. Can you see something that's different about each of their features? Right. All of their beaks have different sizes and shapes for different uses. These animals adapted over time on different parts of the island so that they could eat and adapt to their environment. Due to weather changes and food resources may be going scarce because of those weather changes, and they just had to adapt to what was going on around them. Now that we know more information about Darwin and the finches that he studied who were adapting to their environments on the Galapagos Islands, let's do an activity to help us better understand what was going on.
For this activity, you're going to need 4 different types of pliers. You're going to need crushed graham crackers, crushed Oreos, and any type of seeds or beads that you'd like. You're also going to need some plastic animals or insects and some gummy worms. The first scenario we're going to look at is the needle-nosed finch. This finch lives in a warm environment that receives moderate rainfall all year. The finch usually eats worms that live in the moist soil, but recently there hasn't been much rain and the ground has dried out and become very stiff. So let's use our needle nose pliers to try and pick up some of these insects that have come into the dry ground. It's very hard to pick them up if they're not skinny enough. So this finch has a problem. What is the issue? They can't pick up the food they need because the ground is too dry and the bugs are too big for their beaks. So how will this negatively affect the finch? Well, the finch won't be able to eat and he'll starve. But do you think that these finches could adapt in their environment? Maybe if there was more rain or their beaks had gotten a little bit larger. But what could they do to adapt? Well, they could fly over to the next bin and try out their soil. It's rich and moist and they can pick up the worms inside of it easily. Let's look at scenario 2, the channel finch. This finch lives in a dry and hot environment. They do not receive a lot of rainfall typically and eat bugs and berries. Recently, there have been a lot of rainstorms occurring, which is causing the land to be very moist. This has wiped out many of the bugs that once crawled on the dry ground. Worms have started to arise in the moist dirt. What is the issue that they're having? Well, it looks as if their beaks are a little too big for this type of nutrient, which is the worms. This can cause them to have health issues to arise and not get enough nutrients to their bodies. So what can they do to adapt to their environment? They could eat more worms if they needed to, or they could migrate to a different island. The channel finches have migrated to the dry island that we were on in the first scenario. This island has more bugs that they can pick up more easily and get the nutrients that they need. Let's take a look at scenario 3, the snipping finch. This finch lives in a cool and lush environment filled with plants that drop seeds. These finches usually eat these seeds as well as bugs because they are small enough for its beak to pick up. But recently, the seeds have not been falling due to the lack of rain and wind. Some of the seed dropping plants are beginning to wilt and die. What is the issue? Well, as we see, the finch cannot have enough nutrients because there's not enough seeds to pick up and there are no bugs in sight. So this could negatively affect the finch by making it hungry and not be able to survive that way. The finches could move environments to this one. This one has lots of seed droppings, so they have enough to pick up with their little beaks, and they have a good amount of bugs that they can pick up and eat. Let's look at our last scenario, scenario 4, the crimping finch. This finch lives in a warm environment that has rainfall periodically that helps the plants to live effortlessly and allows the birds to eat the large seeds that they drop each day. The weather is the same every day and the birds love the seeds. So the birds really love picking up these seeds and eating them. And it looks like their environment is pretty perfect. So is there an issue here? And if not, are there any issues that you could think could arise that could make this finch fly somewhere else? Think about these questions at home and try this activity on your own. Thank you guys for taking the time to learn about life systems and processes with me and taking the time to try out this activity. I hope you guys enjoyed watching.